Hello, Mr. Jamin. This guy's polite. I like him already. Thank you for your course and podcast. I appreciate your short-to-the-point answers. I was very glad to hear that degrees and formal education are not as important to getting a first job as the schools make them out to be. No. The degree itself is worthless. The education might be worth something. The knowledge is worth something, but the degree, no one cares, okay? What else does he say? How about a writer's age? I'm a retired Air Force veteran, and I've decided to become a writer for television. I just started learning to write, and I know I have a few years before I'll be ready to start trying for jobs, but I'm concerned about my age. I'm already 50. That makes you young compared to me. Is it going to be a barrier to get a staff writing job? Thank you, Charles Sullivan. So here's the thing. I post daily screenwriting tips on creativity, how to be a better writer, how to break into Hollywood. I do this for free, and I don't get paid extra to shatter anyone's dreams. So I don't want to do that. But you have made a hard career choice even harder. It's no secret that Hollywood favors youth. And before anybody jumps on me, I'm not considered young, okay? So, and also when you're young, you're able to do things, to break in a little easier. Like at 50, do you really want to schlep and get coffee for people and make almost no money and live on a futon? When you're young, you can do that. When you're older, you probably can't, okay? Now, you were in the Air Force for many years. If I were to ask you what you gained from being in the Air Force, you might say, well, I learned leadership skills, I learned about sacrifice and service and all those things. And I might say, wow, I want to learn those things too. Do you think I should go into the Air Force now? And you would probably say, at your age, it's probably easier to learn those things by doing something else. And so as a professional television writer, I've learned how to tell engaging stories, how to make them funny, and how to take parts of myself and express them in a way that makes people kind of relate to it, and it makes people feel less alone in the world. And so if you want to learn how to do that, and I learned it on the job mostly, but if you want to learn how to do that, you don't necessarily have to become a television writer by profession. You can still learn how to do that, by studying and by writing every day, and you can get that same benefit. So I would say that the journey is definitely worth taking, even if you never get to the destination. Because you may get the same rewards that I get, but on a smaller scale. But so what? You still get to experience what it's like to move people with your words and have the world feel smaller, okay? So, footnote, Charles, there's some good news here. So if there were like a new show on the air and it took place in the Air Force and you had a killer script, the odds of you getting hired, if you were able to get that script in the showrunner's hands, would be enormously higher than someone else, because they're going to want people in the writer's room who actually know what it's like to be in the Air Force. So that when someone writes a scene where they roll a bomb down a flight of steps, you'd say, what, in the Air Force, we actually never did that. This is the procedure for getting a bomb from one floor to the other, right? And so in that sense, you'd be valuable, incredibly valuable, if you can find the opening on a brand new show that takes place in the Air Force. But you can still write a play. You can still write a novel, right? And you can still write about your experiences. I also want to say, a few years ago, I wrote on a TV show, and one of the writers was retired Air Force. She was much younger, though. And I was like, oh, you should do a pilot about that. And she goes, nah, I was stationed in a dentist's office. That's my post. I go, oh, that's fantastic. That to me is so interesting that you were in the Air Force, but you had this boring job in the Air Force, and she didn't actually see that. And then I was trying to encourage her. That's a great juxtaposition. So it doesn't always have to be about you, flying fighter jets. You have an interesting story to tell. Keep at it. I'm Michael Jamin, writer.